Let's do the math behind making money. First and foremost, I am not a psychopath. I don't usually use a notebook oriented landscape. However, I think that's the best way to go about it for this particular video for obvious reasons. I literally dusted off my Texas Instruments calculator. Shout out to high school algebra. Maybe I used it in college. I don't remember. But so today we're going to just talk about what it takes to achieve some pretty worth pursuing levels of gross revenue per year. So let's look at first the big number of 100K in sales per year. This is a lot of people, myself included's first major milestone. Now, let's make this a little bit more concrete. The more you know about your numbers, and this is kind of the purpose of this video, the more you know about your numbers, the more visible and clear they are for you in your pursuit of them. Therefore, they're also less scary and less arbitrary, less abstract, all of the synonyms, okay? So the more you know about your numbers, the more likely you are, by my estimation, to take the action necessary to hit them. So I think that it's pretty obvious to know that $100,000 split into 90 days, or our 4 business quarters, is 25K. So that's our 90-day total. And that's the available metric that eBay kicks you often, is that 90-day total, because they're keeping track of your sales quarter by quarter as well. But if we take our $100,000, and I kind of already know the math, but I will just share it with you a little bit. So if we take our $100,000 in revenue and we divide that down by 12 to the monthly basis, it means that we are needing to sell $8,333 per month. So this breaks down to a monthly level of $83.33 and some change. Okay. So that's what you need to be selling per month in order to get this far. Now, all of this is to say that your sales in a calendar year do not have to be linear in order to make this happen. Okay. But let's take a step back, and this one might be a little bit more like vague, perhaps controversial, but I'm going to go ahead and make a huge heavy claim and say that in this type of business, the margin, so the difference in profit relative to what you purchased an item for in this particular space, averaging out to a 10% margin going up in the positive direction, is a pretty conservative estimation. I will put in a disclaimer and say that if you are selling if you're selling a very expensive item very quickly for a 5% margin, that is nothing to sniff at. And I know a lot of people are benefiting from that right now in various ways. And so this 10% margin hopefully doesn't sound like an overshot to you. I know plenty of people who are making a margin higher than this, but in my estimation, I think that pulling a 10% margin out of your gross revenue amount is a conservative enough estimation to not completely destroy your business, likely. But if you look at 10% of gross revenue, it's $10,000 at this level. And so what that means is you can pull it out. Your business is still sustaining for the remainder of the year, but you can bank that money and deploy it, which 10,000 is enough to get you out of a pinch, but it's not life-changing money. So what I would do in this type of situation, unless I had some kind of catastrophic emergency come up, is just keep the money in, grow my bankroll, and then next number becomes easier. So that's kind of how this stuff all works. But with all that said, if we look at a 10% margin, then we can do some basic math here. So we have our number 83.33. That's how much we need to sell per month. Well, if we do times 9/10, that gives us 90% of our sales number, which again, if we're operating on a 10% margin, then we need to be spending 90% of this number to get there. That's $7,500. So we need to have that much spent per month in order to presumably get to our $100,000 revenue marker. Okay, so that's spend per month. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, and I'll just be pretty candid here, in the beginning of 2025, I had something more like $4,000 per month that I was spending in the very early months of 2025. But Drew, you told us that you did $100,000 in revenue in 2025. Correct. I did that because I continued putting my capital back in with the margin, and the number got bigger over the course of the year. That paired with a few big key items selling as well to kind of like beef up the total amount of spending power that I have at any given moment. But this is how this works, right? You don't want this number to be exactly fixed all the time until your business is a way bigger top line than this. And then pulling that 10% or whatever, it just becomes a predictable amount that you're able to take out. And that's called your income, right? At least that's how I'm gearing my business towards. You could also get into like pulling it all in a lump sum or whatever. But anyways, so if you take a look at our $7,500 a month, that's in spend. If you want to look at that on a weekly basis, if you're trying to create like a very, very, very consistent and predictable cash flow, you only need to be spending about $1,500 per week. And again, that doesn't seem, oh my gosh. So $1,500 per week is our amount of spend, which again, hopefully that makes it seem a little bit less intimidating for you guys, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do here is add clarity, therefore getting rid of fear. So this is kind of the math behind getting to $100,000 per year in revenue. You have to be spending about $1,500 per week on average. And that's buying very quality items that are gonna, sell quickly. What you don't want to be buying are things like this. What you do want to be buying are cards like these, right? Good cards, popular characters, high rarity, in the best condition you can find. So make sure you're not buying garbage, and all of this becomes also a little bit more feasible because your sales are going to happen faster. You're working with bigger numbers. It's easier to make money off of more money. But this is kind of like the math behind 100K. So if that's your goal for the year, just do that, right? Kind of tongue in cheek there. But if we want to look at things a little bit larger scale, my current goal for 2026 is to do $250,000 in revenue. So $250,000. I did about 105,000 last year. So this is still about a 2.5 times multiplier. So that's going to take some effort, right? And I'll be honest, again, I've done this math before, so I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. And the more I do the math, though, the less intimidating it becomes. But if we look at $250,000 and we split that into our 90-day total, we get a number of $62.5 thousand. So $62,500 as our 90-day total. I'll tell you right now, this is higher than my current 90-day total on eBay. So that in itself is a little bit like alarming. If I were to stop doing the math here, this seems scary. It might seem impossible. Yikes. Big problem, red flags, panic. But I know that in the beginning of 2025, my 90-day total was not this big. And by the end of 2025, it was bigger. And that's what caused my average to be about this, right? Across platforms. So I'm fully aware of the fact that my 90-day total, as long as I continue to purchase intelligent cards at good prices and make the best decisions with them, then my current 90-day total will hopefully overshoot this 90-day total. And then it will average out to about this to hit that number. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to go back up to our $250,000 number and split that down to the monthly level. So still here, this one is kind of a deep breath. So we have $20,833 and some change. Wow. So this is how much we need to sell per month in order to make that happen. If we pop over, though, to our margin of about 10% of gross, conservatively, I think, comment down below if you think that number is kind of out of pocket. I mean, I know the math behind my business, and so for me that works, and I guess everyone has their own thing going on. But anyways, if we look at this number and we multiply it by 9/10 in order to get 90% of it, that means that we need to be spending about $18,750 per month. Okay, kind of scary. If we break that down to the weekly level, though, well, guys, it's only $4,687 per week. Now, here's where things begin to take a different turn. This is my big moment right here. This is my point of revelation, all right, or realization. I have a number, I'll say, just to be frank here, it's like my amount of current cash on hand or capital on hand to plow into collections or lots available to purchase is somewhere between these two numbers on the generous side, I'll say. So I have a number bigger than this. quite a bit bigger than this. Right now, ready to deploy. If I want to make sure my cash flow is like very consistent and predictable, then I don't want to deploy all of it in one chunky go. Instead, what I would aim for is this number per week. And the cool thing is, even though my number is bigger than this right now, it could be depleted rather quickly if I get a high volume of things worth purchasing. And there's a whole video in and of that will come soon too. But just because I have a bigger number than this doesn't mean that I'm yet ready for this, right? However, I have, several hundred listings available on my eBay store right now. I have things listed for sale on my own Fanatics account. I utilize Fanatics through other areas as well. I, have private deals that go on here and there. So it's like I have money coming in, trickling in all the time. So as this number were to be depleted 1 week, and then week 2, it's even less, and then I'm really scratching my head a little bit, like the number's getting smaller in my bank account, is not like that, because more money is also coming in from this like sequence of events that is purchase item, list item, sell item, purchase new item. Like it's just that cycle over and over again. And that's happening every single day. As it stands right now, there's very few days where I go to the post office with like less than, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 15 items is probably a huge range. However, that's like what I'm mailing every day. And in 2025, my average sales price was $75, which means that every time someone clicked buy now, the average was $75 going into my bank account. And if I'm doing that 5 to 15 times per day, then the amount of money I have in my bank account replenishes itself rather quickly. And that makes this number a little bit more attainable, right? But if I were just coming in with like, say, $5,000, then this number might be awfully difficult to hit unless I'm just hitting a bunch of jackpots over and over and over again, right? But having a bigger number than this makes this a lot more attainable. And so that's just kind of what's up. What I was talking about previously was cash flow. And again, I think there's probably another video in this, and that's just how you're pacing out your spend and how quickly you're able to turn over your inventory, right? Like those are the two big considerations regarding cash flow with these numbers. However, this is just what I have to do. Nothing more, nothing less. This is what I have to do. This is the reality behind me realizing my goal. And I did it last year. Therefore, I have more confidence in myself this year. And I think that, there's some unique opportunities at play right now. A lot of the items that I have on hand that I have not listed or sold are starting to gain a little bit more popularity, particularly vintage or mid-era stuff. And so all of that will kind of like benefit in some different ways as well. But like this seems way scarier to me than this. The more specific you can get about the math behind your goals, the more likely you are to fulfill them, and the less frightened you are going to be of pursuing them. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're here for. We want to have the highest odds of success, and being as informed as you can is going to result in that. So, whatever your goal is, make sure you sit down, do the math, much like I just did, and then devise an actionable plan on how you're going to make it all happen. Because it's not magic, it's not mystery until you do the math. Once you actually sit down and confront all of these things, the mystery and the fear go away. So, wish you all the best of luck. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.